Hey class, welcome back. I know you missed me, but here we go. We're on lesson 2.7 today, adding and subtracting rational expressions. I will say this is probably the hardest lesson of the unit, and I hope you have practiced up with your factoring and have been pretty good with multiplying and dividing and simplifying. Just remember, we're always going to be working on stating our restrictions whenever we simplify a rational expression. So let's take a look at a warm-up question here. One, I just made one up, and the other one was to take up a question from the homework. All right, so the first one, ladies and gentlemen, if you pause to do your factoring, you will notice that you get x plus 2 and, my fault, 2 plus x and 2 minus x divided by, use your simple trinomial factoring, you should get x minus 5 times x minus 2. And up at the top on the second expression, we're going to common factor out a 3x and have left over x minus 5. And on the denominator, it's simply x plus 2. Okay, now, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to think very carefully. Let's do some simple cancellations first. So what is the easy one we can see? The easy one we can see is x minus 5 and x minus 5. Okay? Another one is, if you notice here, x plus 2, the x is positive and the 2 is positive. However, here the x is positive and the 2 is positive up here. So I'm looking at this one and this one. Notice that both of the signs are both positive, which means, hey, these two can cancel. Now, what I want to talk to you about, let me just simplify that first. We've got 3x times 2 minus x, all divided by x minus 2. I want you to take special note of these two factors here. They are very similar. The only thing difference, ladies and gentlemen, is that they have opposite signs. So how do we make something opposite? For example, we've got negative 2 minus x. If I factor out a negative 1, I'm going to have negative 2 plus x. And if I just bring that in proper order, it's going to be negative 1 times x minus 2. So notice, ladies and gentlemen, here is a cool step that I can do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my numerator, and I'm going to have 3x, sorry, my bad on that one. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. My fault. Okay, and I'm going to times it by negative 1, okay, and then it's going to be times by x minus 2. And it's going to be divided by x minus 2. So if they're the opposite signs, you can multiply through by negative 1. So what happens here is I cancel the x minus 2's now, but what changes is instead of it being 3x, it's got to be multiplied by the negative 1, so it's negative 3x. Okay, so make a special note of that, folks. If your factors are very similar, except they have opposite signs, to multiply by negative 1 to change it so that they will be able to cancel. So our restrictions here, guys, is that x cannot be equal to negative 2, can't be equal to 2 or 5. All right, and from, I guess, last day's homework or maybe the day before's homework, page 122, number 9, taking a look at that expression, it asks for, I believe, the mass over the pressure. I don't have my textbook open right now. I'm guessing that's what it is, or a density formula. So all you did was sub in your values. Remember, whenever you've got a division, you got to invert and multiply. So change that. It's going to flip the second fraction. All right. And then what we want to do is we want to factor through. So we've got p plus 1 over 3p plus 1 times, do our factoring here. Hopefully you recognize that as a perfect square. So 3p plus 1 squared times p plus 1 times p minus 1. Okay. Taking a look, canceling, canceling, cancel, cancel. What are we left with? V equals 3p plus 1 divided by p minus 1. And your restrictions are where p cannot be equal to negative 1 negative 1/3, and 1. All right. Great. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, hope you have some patience with you today and lots of paper, because this is what happens. These are going to be your longest questions, and they're going to be worth more on your unit test, okay? Just remember, when we're adding and subtracting rational expressions or fractions, a common denominator is needed, and we call it the lowest common denominator, okay? So just a quick example, if I had 1/3 plus 1/4, what is our lowest common denominator? It's going to be 12. So you want to get both expressions to 12. Okay, and whatever you do to the numerator, you got the same to the denominator. So how did we get 3 to 12? We multiplied it by 4. So whatever we do to the bottom, we got to do the same to the top. So that's going to be 4. Likewise, would we multiply the 4 by to get 12? 3. It's going to be 3. So then, once we've got a lowest common denominator, then we can add our numerators. All right, we will be doing that today. But instead of using just solid numbers, we're going to be using factors, okay? So that's where we're headed. Okay, we'll start with an easier one here. Okay, so for A, ladies and gentlemen, we've got 1 fraction out of 6 and 1 out of 3. So my lowest common denominator in this case is going to equal 6. So what I want to do is have both denominators be equal to 6. The good news is the first one stays the same because 6 times 1 gives you 6, so it's going to be x plus 3. But the second denominator, remember, what did we multiply 3 by to get 6? 2. So it's going to be 2 times this whole expression, 2x minus 3. Now we've got a common denominator of 6. I've got x plus 3. And I'm going to simplify this out using distributive law, so plus 4x minus 6. Collect like terms, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to have 5x minus 3 all over 6. Okay? So notice it didn't ask you to state any restrictions, but let's just put them down anyway. Okay? What would our restriction be here? Do we have a denominator that has a value of 0? For example, can 6 ever be 0? Nope. Can 3 ever be 0? So in this case, folks, there are no restrictions. Okay? Take a look at the second one. Now we've got some variables. Okay? Going to be a little harder. Okay, looking at our expression, ladies and gentlemen, notice we're subtracting instead of adding this time. And we need to find our lowest common denominator. So our lowest common denominator in this case is going to be what's a number that both 2x goes into and 6x cubed, and it's going to be 6x cubed. Okay? So what we want to do is we want to develop the fraction so that the denominators have 6x cubed on them. Okay? The second fraction is easy because it stays the same, so I'm just going to put it in right away. This one might be a little hard to figure out. So if we know our lowest common denominator is 6x cubed, but what already exists there, which I'm going to divide by, is 2x. So simplifying, what do I need to multiply it by? Well, 2 goes into 2 once, it goes into 6 3 times. X makes that x squared. So what we're looking for is 3x squared. So I have to take my numerator and times it by 3x squared. All right? Using distributive law. And now, ladies and gentlemen, our denominator can be 6x cubed. I like to always write that down first because sometimes people forget that on a unit test. All right, so we've got 3x cubed minus 3x squared minus 2x plus 3. And can we collect any like terms there? No. And what's my restriction here, guys? X cannot be equal to 0. All right. C. This is where you're going to need lots of room, ladies and gentlemen. Okay? And get your thinking cap on and have some patience here. Okay. So what is a common factor? So my lowest common factor, or denominator, denominator, where m goes into m plus 1 and m minus 3. Well, what you have to realize is that our lowest common denominator is going to be all of them as multiples. So m times m plus 1 times m minus 3, because none is divisible into the other like this example up here. Notice how one could get divided into another. We can't do this here. So it's going to be a great big common factor. Okay, so what does that mean? That means that I'm going to have 1, 2, 3 expressions where my denominator is going to be all of these. Okay, so I'm going to write down m times m plus 1 times m minus 3 for all of my denominators. Okay, so what we need to do is take a look at balancing out our fractions. So we already know the denominators, we're trying to get them all the same. So what do we have to multiply 2 by to balance it out? Well, we already know that it's divided by m, so that's the only thing we don't include. So we're really multiplying it by the other two factors, which is m plus 1 times m minus 3. Okay? Second expression, which one already exists? This one, so you're going to multiply it by the other ones. So you're going to put m times m minus 3 times what's already exists, which is m plus 2. And you want to put that in brackets as well, because it's a factor. All right, third one, which one already exists? That one. So you're going to multiply it, the other two by it. So m times m plus 1 times what was already existing, m minus 1. Okay? All right, so the good news is now that we've balanced our equations, our denominator is just going to be written once. Whoo-wee! I don't like writing that out 3 times each time, so you can write it out once. However, we've got some expanding work to do. Okay? So what we want to do is I'm going to do my FOIL first. So I'm just changing the color, sorry, you can see. I'm going to do my FOIL first here, guys. So it's going to be 2 times m squared, and minus 3m and plus m is going to be minus 2m. I'm going to simplify that a little bit easier because you want to save room on your lines. Otherwise, you're going to be writing this out a lot. Okay, and then I'm going to have minus m. I'm going to do this part first again. So it's going to be m squared plus 2m minus 3m is going to be minus m, and then minus 6. Okay, and on our last one, leave the m out front, and then we're going to have m squared. A negative minus m and a plus m cancel, so it's just going to be minus 1. All right, I just extended my divide by line there, and you can extend it here too. Make sure it covers it. All right, we're almost done, ladies and gentlemen. That's the hardest part there, right? Okay. So here we go. Let's finish it off. Well, let's do our distributive law, and then we'll collect like terms. So on my denominator, because I like to do it first, make sure you don't forget it. I usually have at least 1 or 2 people on the unit test that forget that, and it's a minor deduction. Okay, so distributive law, 2m squared minus 4m minus 6 minus m cubed plus m squared, watch your signs, plus 6m. Okay, and then the last distributive law should be plus m cubed minus m. Last line, ladies and gentlemen. Here we go. Finish her off. Let's put the denominator down. Collect like terms on the numerator. Here we go. 3m squared plus m minus 6. Wow, pretty big question, eh, guys? Only other thing we got to do is tell me what my restrictions are. Okay? Look back to your lowest common denominator. This is pretty easy to do here. Yeah, it won't be negative, can't be -1, 0, or 3. Okay? If you can do it, ladies and gentlemen, restrictions are easier if you put them in numerical order from least to greatest. All right. All right. One more example, ladies and gentlemen. Do you think you can handle it? I hope so. All right, let's tie it in. Probably the hardest question you will get is something looking like D. Okay? All right. So the only difficulty here is, hey, we don't have factors to help us decide our lowest common denominator. We have 2 trinomials. So what we want to do is actually factor them out. So I've got a minus 2. And let's use side margin to do distributive law. So product of negative 6, sum of 5. So it's going to be two negatives, or apologize. You're going to have a negative and a positive to make negative 6. And to work that out, you're going to have a plus 6 and a minus 1. Okay. Second simple factoring is easier. You're going to have a plus 2 and a minus or plus 1. All right, so once we're factored, ladies and gentlemen, notice that none of these are overlapped, right? Okay, which kind of stinks, because what's our lowest common denominator going to be? Lowest common denominator is going to be all 4 of these. So it's going to be a plus 6 times a minus 1 times a plus 6 times a plus 1. All right? So, when we do this, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to write that out twice. I know, it's a lot of work, guys. You can handle it. That's my sign here, subtract. Okay. All right. Let's do some work. Okay, so what currently exists is A. Okay. What 2 do we have? What 2 do we already have covered? We already have a plus 5 and or a plus 6 and a minus 1. So we need the other 2. So we're going to times it by a plus 2 times a plus 1. Looking at our second denominator, our second fraction, I should say, what do we already have? Well, we need 2 here, and we already have a plus 2 and a plus 1, so we need the other ones, which is a plus 6 times a minus 1. Okay? Good news is we can have a common denominator now that we only have to do this once, so a plus 6 times a minus 1 times a plus 2 times a plus 1. All right, let's do some FOIL first. So we're going to have a squared, and then we've got plus a plus 2a, which is going to be plus 3a, plus 2, subtract 2 times, let's FOIL the second part out. It's going to be a squared minus a plus 6a is plus 5a. Minus 6. Okay, distributive law. After I write down my denominator. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, you got to write it out each time. You can't just use your ditto marks. I know everybody asks me that. I know you can handle it. All right, so we have a cubed plus 3a squared plus 2a. Got that one done. Next, negative 2a squared. Watch your signs here. Minus 10a plus 12. Last line. Woohoo, we can do it. And this is the last question, I promise. We're not doing it. Don't worry. We're not going to do it. Way too much time. Okay? I'd rather you spend the time doing your homework. Okay? So collect like terms. Uh-oh. I hope this still works. Let me see if we're still on, ladies and gentlemen. Something just happened to my... We're still on, I hope. Something just happened to my computer. All right, so here we go. Let's finish that off. A to the power of 3 plus a squared minus 8a plus 12, all divided by this denominator for the last time, a plus 6 times a minus 1 times a plus 2 times a plus 1. And lastly, our restrictions, where a cannot be equal to negative 6, negative 2, negative 1, and 1. I love that spot on my smartboard where it goes squiggly. That's not me. Okay? All right, everybody, here's your homework down below. If that'll allow me to go down here. Good. All right. So ladies and gentlemen, there's our homework, page 128, numbers 5AB, 6AB, 7 to 9, and 12. Have a great class, and ladies and gentlemen, need some help on this one. I understand this is tricky. Please come and see me. I'm just waiting. Hopefully it opens. There we go.